My name is Laura Baldwin. I was the kid at school who was not good at sport or academics, and I ended up being an Olympian, which was beyond a dream come true. Blew my expectations completely out of the park of what I could achieve, and was lucky enough to campaign full-time for a decade and was ranked #2 in the world at my peak. And then I coached for a decade, and I coached at the London 2012 Olympics with the Australian team and the Rio 2016 Olympics with the Hungarian team. And in between that, I got dropped from a trials, went to the other side of the world to Australia, and I was the media and marketing coordinator for the Australian team at Beijing 2008. So 4 Olympics, 3 different roles. Yeah, such a buzz, very motivating. And in more
Wow.
recent years, I've turned my attention to climate activism and nature protection.
It's a very beautiful, organic life when I've been sort of watching you vicariously, that you've sort of followed your passion, but also taken it to a high level. And now you're at this point of potentially, if I can say, give back as well. So let's dive into the first question, Laura, which is, what does being strong mean to you?
Well, yeah, I was puzzling this at 2 o'clock this morning when I woke up, and I was like, I've got that interview tomorrow with Kate, and she wants me to talk about being strong. What does that mean to me? And I've asked myself a few times leading up to this, and it didn't straight away come to me because it's not something I really focus on. But when I did think about it in the middle of the night, quite a few things did come into my mind. And there's obviously the physical strength that's the harder you work at developing your physical strength, the stronger you get. But I learned the hard way that that's only if you put enough time recovering in between. If you keep going hard, your body will just not be able to keep up, and you'll end up getting weaker and weaker and weaker. And you'll be like, what's going on? I'm training so hard. I've got to train harder, and I'm getting weaker. Recovery, really important. And then there's the mental side of being strong, which probably is the most important, I guess, that power of self-belief. That there are 3 main stories, 3 main moments in my life that really stand out for really teaching me the power of self-belief. And the first, I was 10 years old, and up until that point I thought I was dumb and I did really bad at school, and I was in the remedial group. And then my mom saw this article in the paper about dyslexia, and she took me along for a test. And this test, lo and behold, proved that, as she believed, her daughter was not stupid and in fact was super intelligent. And my grades improved even before I started the extra tailored education to help me to overcome this. And all that had changed was my self-belief, my realization that I'm not dumb. And actually, if I listen and I apply myself, I might actually be able to do okay or better than I am, bottom of the class. So that was the first time. Then in the gym, I was doing the leg extension with a whole load of other sailors during a training camp overseas. And the #1 sailor was doing 70 kilos or something. I was doing 25 kilos on it. And my Belgian training partner was like, well, if Siren can do 70 kilos, so can I. She's like, budge off. So she got on there and she put it down to 70 kilos. And lo and behold, she lifted it with the same sort of effort that she was with the 25 kilos. And I'm like, well, hang on, if you can do that, I must be able to do this too. And I did. And I was just like, that is crazy. That's so, because that's a huge jump too. Yeah, and I just didn't realize how physically strong I was already, because it is the muscle that you use when you're sailing. So obviously it is well developed. And then the third, I was really lucky to be invited to do a training camp with 4 of the best sailors in the world, just because I lived there, and one of the girls' coaches owed me a bunch of days because I'd already paid for his coaching. So he was like, oh, let's get that done and just combine it into this double whammy. And for me, it was the most life-changing week of my life, because on the first day, I remember just being so amped, because even just talking to these girls, they were my complete idols. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm talking to Carolyn Blower. And yeah. And then I went out in the water, obviously very highly energized, highly charged. And at the end of the day in the debrief, they asked, who do you think was the fastest out there? And they all said Laura. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is crazy. I was mid-fleet, lower than mid-fleet at that stage. And then I realized that previously, if I'd have been next to any of them or pretty much the top 20 on a start line, I'd think in my mind, oh, my race is over. Like I've got so-and-so above me, they're going to roll me and I'm going to be spat out at the start. And now I was like, wow, if I get a good start, I can beat these girls. So I went from, yeah, mid-fleet to 7th of the Europeans just a couple weeks later. And again, all that changed was my self-belief. And yeah, then I got a second at the Nordic Championships, qualified GB for the Olympics, and then got selected all within like 4 months of that moment. And it was just like, wow, what a just yeah, life-changing moment week.
That is insane. And it just recompounds my belief that we put the glass ceiling on us first and then society lowers it there. But we cap it before we even put ourselves out at the starting point.
Yeah.
Well, my second question usually is about sharing an experience and how did you handle it? But you've just shared 3 amazing ones. So I don't want you to repeat yourself.
I didn't read the questions.
It's fine. It's completely fine. I love it organically, and they're there more as a prompt because some people do like structure and others don't. So we'll just free
I do
fall.
have more stories there. I've got another story because then
Go on,
you've
then.
got this whole, you know, being a woman in a man's sport, but sailing is very male dominated. I'd been to the Olympics. I'd been on the Olympic circuit for a decade. I'd been coaching for a good few years. I was in demand. The top Australian sailor wanted me to be her coach. And so she'd gone to the Olympic director and he in front, just straight to my face said, "You're not a coach. You can't coach sailing." And I was like, says the guy that's never been to an Olympics, who doesn't coach, who's like got this role, I don't know how. And I was like, you know, just you could, because they're in such a position of power and authority, just crumble at that point and think, I don't have what it takes. They don't believe in me. But I was just like, no, I am a coach. I'm a good coach. And I know I am. And I'm going to prove this to you. And with every setback as well, I've just always used setbacks to fuel me to want to have a greater desire to achieve. So it's made me stronger. Every knock that I had an email the year before that incredible year that I spoke about, where I qualified the country for the Olympics. I was told that they'd had a meeting with the squad. So my goal at that point was literally to be on the lowest level of the team possible. I wanted to be that first rung of the development squad, you know, amongst the girls, part of the team. And I was told they'd had a meeting and they had to do something radical in order to qualify the country for the Olympics. And if that meant excluding me, so be it. So they all went to the south of Spain. I went to Palma for the winter to train. And I was so motivated to want to prove them wrong and to you know, do as well as I could. And then, yeah, I did manage that. But you could at that point go, wow, you know, I've just been excluded. I'm the only one being excluded. It's time to stop. But yeah, again,
And that isn't an uncommon story. I've heard it from other Olympians and from different countries as well, where they qualified, but for whatever reason, the board of directors chose that they weren't the right fit or feel for what they wanted to aspire towards.
thankfully, managed to prove
Yeah.
all of them wrong.
Yeah, well done. Exactly. And it was part belief and also a lot of hard work. So yeah, congratulations. You definitely worked hard and potentially harder to get it because you didn't have the others cheering and, you know, cheerleading you on and giving you the path that was easier that you'd already merited.
No, the Olympic director did say he thought I sailed double what everybody else had done, the whole rest of the team. He was concerned that at that point that I would burn out. He was right. My first campaign, I could cope with it. But then as the years rolled on and I was trying to push harder and harder and harder still, it was like, no, that need to rest and to structure your program cleverly.
Yeah. Well, this nicely flows potentially into the next question, which is, what are some common misconceptions about strength that you've encountered?
But I guess the best one is that self-misperception, that you limit how strong you think you are or how much you can achieve. And unless you try to push the boundaries, push what's the perceived limits, you don't know how strong you can actually be.
I was actually, if I may, because I've just finished my book for the cycle from last year. And one of my chapters, I used you and your partner as influencers for the theme of the story, because it was about your inaction, where you actually sit or stand through civil disobedience, that actually created and elicited change. I'm not sure if that prompts any ideas, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
We can
use you as
shift.
an example in the book for that.
Nice. Yeah, we can shift into activism and sport. All the lessons that I learned in sport have helped me so much in the environmental fight for our lives. Yeah, and being strong and having that strength to step outside of your comfort zone, to step out in front of moving traffic, oncoming traffic, to stop a road, to sit down, to block it, to shield yourself, try to shield yourself from the abuse that you're having fired at you from passers-by, and just knowing that they just don't know what I know, and so they don't understand why I'm doing this and how effective I know it can be and how necessary it is. And to keep doing that as well, time and after time, it's really nerve-wracking, I guess. Overcoming nerves and yeah, stepping out of your comfort zone is something that is a really big thing in activism. It's not an easy thing to do that, to rock up in the small hours of the morning and block an oil refinery with a boat with all the angry workers coming by, really abusive, really angry, and trying calmly to explain, but there's no way. You can't. You just got to listen and apologize and hope that they go back and listen to the news interviews to understand why we were there and why we were doing that.
Yeah,
So
I think,
something, strength is not physical. It really is the strength to step out of your comfort zone to do something that you believe in.
yeah, I think that's really powerful. And you do that so authentically. I wouldn't say well, because it is nerve-wracking, as you said, and we can see that, but you do it so effectively and consistently, that I find very admirable in yourself. For the next question, how has your understanding of strength influenced your approach to goal setting and success?
Yeah, well, the plan, do, review, that's something I'm still doing today in my activism. So sitting down and working out what your strengths and weaknesses are, what you're good at, what you're weak at, and focusing on that weakness. How am I going to get strong at my weaknesses? How am I going to bring them up to the best level? Working out the best plan to achieve the levels that you need to get to. Doing your plan and then sitting back down and reviewing it again. Like, how did that go? Am I doing well enough at this? What do I need to change? And not just keep trying the same thing and getting the same results. It's like, no, if this isn't working, I got to change something, and I've got to try something different in order to achieve that, to gain that strength in whatever skill it is. And sailing was such a sport with so many different skill sets. You had to be a meteorologist, you had to be able to understand tides and winds and the waves and the kinetics, and then the physics of setting a sail, and the tactics on a race course, like a chessboard that's constantly moving. And yeah, there was a lot of components and elements, which made it really fun.
And it's very transferable skills as well. So, you know, because the world is like a big moving chessboard, nothing works in isolation. So yeah, I'm sure it helps you out now as well.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with with this moment, with like, as a sports person, I was always asking myself, what is the best use of my time, energy, and skills? How am I going to achieve what I want to achieve? And what's the quickest route to getting to where I want to get to? And so with activism, and I, for a good 5 years, believed that direct action was the quickest route to get change to happen, that we needed the powers, the people that hold the power to change what they were doing and to pull the levers. And yeah, and if that's not working, you sit down and you review, or you work out what has worked of that, what hasn't worked, what do we need to change.
And from your own experience, what's one tip or technique for developing and nurturing strength that you can share with us?
I think actually probably a bit different would be to say that when you're tired, rest, don't quit. And whilst you're resting, you're gaining your strength to go again and to set your new challenge and your new goals to achieve them.
Yeah, I really like that. And again, it's something I'm learning, because I'm like a light switch. I'm either doing or I'm not, the
I'm
binary.
so similar. Yeah.
So yeah, and it's
All or
about
nothing.
exactly. So I'm trying. I have that mantra written on one of my post-it notes that comes around with me to remind me that it's okay to pause, but just don't stop. Yeah.
Yeah.
And to close this beautiful conversation, can I start with the first question again, which is, what does being strong mean to you?
Okay, what does being strong mean to me? It means not giving up. It means always trying your best, so that you know that you have tried your best and you can be content with your efforts. If you know that you didn't do your best, and even if you're not strong enough, if you've done your best, you can accept that. And that's a nice way to live in peace and feel okay about yourself, that you did what you could. And yeah, I think that's what being strong means to me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, Laura, it's always a pleasure to catch up. I do appreciate you've got a lot of projects on, as I do as well. But yeah, thank you so much for making the time and being part of the 45 Strong.
Oh, thank you, Kate. It's a pleasure.